Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC Abu Dhabi, Cory Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov for a number one contender spot in the bantamweight division. Winner is going to fight the winner of Sean O'Malley versus Merab, which is going down at the Sphere. But this weekend's event, my friends, is going down in Abu Dhabi at the Etihad Arena. We're back on Fight Island, and man, this is a number one contender spot. Like we mentioned, there's a lot of prospects on the card, some vets. So without further ado, my friends,
let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Main event of the evening for a bantamweight title eliminator. We got Cory Sandhagen. He's 17-4, taking on Umar Nurmagomedov, who is 17-0. Currently, they got it. Umar minus 300. The comeback on Cory Sandhagen is plus 260. So it's not often you see odds like this on a guy like Cory Sandhagen against anybody in the bantamweight division. So right off the bat, you have to take note. And then on the other side of things, you got a 17-0 Nurmagomedov. I mean, no guy named Nurmagomedov is losing a judge's decision. No guy named Nurmagomedov is losing a judge's decision in Abu Dhabi. Let me just say that much. But, man, I got to give both guys so much credit because look at the resume of Cory Sandhagen, dude. Like when this guy just first comes into the UFC, like y'all, listen to this. So Yuri Alcantara, if y'all remember Yuri Alcantara, that dude was a killer. It's basically like the equivalent of like a Joe Anderson Brito today type ordeal. Like, and you're fighting him in your second fight. So you go from Yuri Alcantara to Mario Bautista, who's currently a top 15 guy, to John Lineker, who was a top 10 guy at the time, one of the hardest hitters in the history of the lower weight classes. Rafael Assunção, perennial top 5 guy who beat pretty much everybody in the division, including guys like Sterling and TJ Dillashaw, etc. Then you got Sterling, who went on to become a champ. Moraes, Frankie Edgar, Hall of Fame. TJ Dillashaw, former champ. Peter Yan, former champ. Song Yadong, Marlon Chito Vera, Rob Font. Like, this is Cory Sandhagen's run, man. Like, these are the guys he's been fighting. And then you look at the guys that Umar's been fighting. This is Umar's current UFC run. I just mentioned to you Cory's. Check out Umar's current run. Sergey Morozov, who hasn't competed in the UFC since 2022. Brian Kelleher, who just got cut or retired, who gets finished in the first round every single fight. Nate Maness, who I respect, but Nate Maness is a flyweight. Raoni Barcelos, who I also respect, but my boy Raoni Barcelos is 37 years old, and he's currently ranked number 30 in the world, which is not bad, but I'm just saying this ain't a top 15 guy. And then he fought Bezkat Almakhan, who, Buddy was making his UFC debut, and, he's ranked number 88 in the world. And Buddy dropped Umar early in the fight, but I got to give Umar credit because that wasn't about, Umar's chinny or Umar's this or Umar's that. That was simply a nice shot, like to the back of the ear. It kind of messes your equilibrium. And when Umar got dropped by that, his reaction to immediately like get back up and explode on that takedown, like the athleticism and explosiveness on that takedown he hit on Bezkat was nasty, man. And it reminds me of his cousin Habib. Like Habib, sometimes when dudes would like maybe, they start getting off a little bit striking against Habib, and then Habib would just decide to turn up. And the way he'd close the distance so fast, and Habib would throw like flying double knees like he did against Dos Anjos. And man, there's some similar elements with Umar there in terms of just like you see the athleticism difference, like when this guy's going for his takedown entries and the way he's able to hold people down. And also his striking isn't half bad either. He's got some funky kicks, but we still don't know that much. I say that about a 17-0 fighter with the Nurmagomedov last name. So like, obviously all our favorite champions were once contenders, were once prospects, or once amateurs. So, like, just because he hasn't beat or fought anybody yet that's in the top 15 doesn't mean that when he finally does, that he can't rise to the occasion. But what I'm saying here is that Cory Sandhagen is like a legit top 5 guy. So you're going from fighting number 88 in the world and number 50, number 30. And now you're fighting like a top 5, legitimate top 5 guy who's paid his dues since day one and who's like entering his prime and who seems like he's pretty close to a title shot. So that makes it interesting there, man. And it's one of those things where you can point back to when Cory Sandhagen lost the Aljamain Sterling fight, the Piotr Yan fight. But what you got to understand about those fights is the Sterling fight was like in 2020, guys. Like, you can absolutely make huge improvements in in over 4 years of time to get to train and get better. Like, and all these guys, Cory Sandhagen's setbacks have been against former champs, Sterling, Dillashaw, Yan, and like he showed glimpses in all those fights minus the Sterling fight, but it just seemed like the maturity wasn't quite there. Well, fast forward 4 years, I think that's, for a guy who's always been as talented as Sandhagen, that's enough time to catch up. But then when you're dealing with a guy like Umar, so like the volume isn't going to be anywhere near the Sandhagen volume, but what is there is just the effectiveness with the grappling, man. This guy, Cory Sandhagen is going to get taken down in this fight. But the question is, just because Cory Sandhagen is going to get taken down doesn't mean that the fight just ends there. Like, he seems to me like a guy who's scrappy, who can scramble back up to his feet. And then from there, Umar does have some good stuff standing. So it's not a mismatch standing by any means. But Cory has significantly more volume. But let me say this. I want to say this before I forget. Cory Sandhagen changed his style a bit after the Piotr Yan fight, right? So he fights Piotr Yan in October of 2021. He doesn't come back until September 2022. So almost a full year to work on some stuff. And what he's been doing his last few fights is he's been attempting a ridiculous amount of takedowns. Like against Song Yadong, he goes out there and Cory Sandhagen attempts 14 takedowns. He only gets one of them, but what he changed in his style is that he still has the volume and, the distance and the flashy striking, which he's known for. But like now he's out here mixing in these takedown attempts, which even if he can't get the takedown, just the threat of the takedown and just always making you guess, oh, this guy's going to level change. Oh, this guy's going to throw upstairs. Like, that gets people off guard. So ever since the Piotr Yan fight, Cory Sandhagen has been shooting a lot of takedowns, and he's been getting them too. But granted, Song Yadong, Chito, Vera, and Rob Font can't wrestle like Umar. But it's not even about that. It's more so about the fact that there has been a maturity in Sandhagen's game. Even though I must admit, ever since the Piotr Yan fight, like Cory Sandhagen's fights have like not been the most fun to watch. Especially that Rob Font fight. Like, I get it, he got an injury early in that fight, but like, dude, for all my friends in Nashville that went to that fight and that had to pay money for that fight, yeah, like I feel for y'all, man, because that was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Now, technically speaking, it wasn't bad, but just aesthetically, it was just terrible. It was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. And this fight with Chito, again, it was dominant, but it's like, man, it's like I'm falling asleep watching it. Not that Umar's fights are any more exciting, but I have seen some maturity from Sandhagen since the setbacks. And no one's exempt from that first L unless your name is Khabib or John Jones. Is Umar truly that guy? I get it. The last name is Nurmagomedov. He's 17-0, but he hasn't fought anybody. I mean, the best guys he's fought is like ranked number 30 in the world. He hasn't fought anyone in the top 20, anyone in the top 15, anyone in the top 10, the top 5. No former champs. Like, so I need to see how he performs against a bona fide, legitimate, established top 5 guy like Sandhagen. And I don't think it's going to be as simple as holding down Sandhagen. I think Sandhagen can scramble back up on the feet. I'm curious about what goes down there. If Cory's going to feel as comfortable letting his volume go due to the threat of the takedown, or is going to be a bit more measured? Is he going to attempt takedowns on Umar, not to get them, but just to get him a little off guard, a little, get his mind thinking a little bit. So this is literally one of those fights where I don't know, man, because I don't know how good Umar truly is. Like, I know he's great. I know he's obviously, he deserves this fight. and that I think he's got a very bright career ahead of him. But like I've always been a believer and advocate in paying dues. And like I said, Sandhagen's been fighting like ranked fighters since he just got into the UFC. Umar hasn't fought a single ranked guy until this weekend in his first ever main event. So that experience counts for so much. But it's like, do you want to fade a Nurmagomedov in Abu Dhabi? I don't. And then again, do I want to lay minus 300 against a guy like Cory Sandhagen? I also don't. So when I talk like this, it's probably dog or pass. But I really, like last week, when I had my boy Bilal Muhammad, winning that belt, like I was very confident in that because the way the styles match up, Leon needs his distance to work and to get off on his long range, kind of low output kickboxing type fights and Bilal didn't give him that space. Whereas here, it's like I'm not exactly sure what range this fight needs to take place at for Cory, because I'm curious if Cory is going to come in here with this new approach where he is, attempting a lot of takedowns, but also keeping the volume, or if in this fight he's going to kind of tone it back a bit and just try to pick him apart, try to scramble back up, try to make this guy work for all those takedown attempts. When he starts to fatigue, then you start to take over down the stretch. So, yeah. Guys, I have no idea. Like, I literally do not know who's going to win this fight. So, I mean, in cases like that, I usually take the dog. It's just that picking against the Nurmagomedov in Abu Dhabi does not sound like a smart idea. So I'm going to go Umar reluctantly, but, like, Umar needs to prove it to me against this level of competition, man. He's never seen anything like this before. And if Cory is really right up there for that title trajectory, I mean, a win here ain't going to hurt. I'll tell you that. You'll be right there, my boy. But after that horrendous fight against Rob Font, you've had a full year off. Let's come back and see if you're title ready or not. And Umar, even if Umar takes a setback here, you'll 100% be back. No one's exempt from these first L's, these vet lessons and whatnot. But, like, I just, 12 minutes of talking to tell you that I have no idea who's going to win this fight. But again, guys, I'm not going to bullshit you. Like, last week, I was confident on Bilal. This week, I have no fucking idea. I just want to sit back, enjoy it, watch it, and see two really high-level guys go at it. Since I have to give a pick, I'll say Umar, but from a betting perspective, I think it's dog or pass. Now, next up, co-main event of the evening in the middleweight division. We got a match between Shara Magomedov. He's 13-0, taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk, who is 19-8 currently. They got it. Shara minus 235. The comeback on Michal is plus 200. I'm a big fan of Michal. He's a marauder. He goes forward. He likes to take people's heads off, but there's a lot of bonehead mistakes he makes on the mat that still haven't been patched up, that, you want to see this guy put it all together. And in that last fight against Holland, I actually bet him there. He goes out there, drops Holland in like the first 30 seconds. I'm like, perfect. Let's let him back up. Nope. You follow him into his guard, get armbar, didn't even tap. Respect for not tapping. But, like, still, it's like, are we still falling into these traps? But here, he doesn't have to worry about getting taken down. And flip side, Shara's had the same issues on the mat. He hasn't been getting tapped out like Michal, but he's easily taken down. The thing is, Michal doesn't really shoot that much. He'll shoot occasionally, but Michal likes to brawl. And the thing is, when you got two strikers like this, Michal likes to get right in your face, and Shara kind of needs distance to work. But here's the difference. With that being said, Michal's style, it might not give Shara the distance, but it will. What it will do is give Shara the openings, and I think Shara's going to blast his body. I think Shara's got a better striking arsenal, and there will be a time to fade Shara Magomedov. I just don't think this is the time. This is a striking match between two guys that are going to go at it, but
Shara has a lot more weapons at his disposal, and that he's going to capitalize on just obviously the openings, but more so take advantage of how overly aggressive Michal tends to be at times. And the time to fade Shara is going to be when we really get a real grappler that isn't going to gas out after one takedown, a guy who can really make this guy work, hold him down, transition to some big positions, some dominant positions, and potentially get the submission. But Michal's not that guy. Michal's going to bang with him. Michal's going to leave him opening. So give me Shara there to come out here and get the dub. And I'm a huge fan of Michal. I just think there's a bad matchup for him. So for that reason, I got Shara Magomedov. Featured bout in the bantamweight division, we got Marlon Chito Vera, the man with the most finishes in bantamweight history, taking on the former flyweight champ. Marlon Chito Vera is 23-9, taking on the former flyweight champ, Deiveson Dice Duguera Figueiredo, who's 23-3. Currently, they got it. Deiveson minus 145. The comeback on Chito is plus 125. So much respect to both these guys. Love them both. I mean, what Deiveson accomplished at flyweight, I think he's one of the best flyweights of all time. I think he's an incredible fighter. He's kind of has like a bit of a karate distance style, like long style when he fights on the feet and he explodes with big shots. But his ground game is where it's really at. I've seen him dangle off necks. I've seen him take backs. I've seen him do the whole bit. And in this fight, I think it's in his best interest to get the grappling going. Reason being is this. How old is my boy Deiveson now? Because, you know, he's getting up there, right? Deiveson was born in 87. So what? He's like 37 or something, 36, 37. He's getting up there. And Chito, he's come off the title loss, so you got to be kind of worried about where his motivation's at. But this fight comes down to the range it takes place at. If Marlon Vera, like one thing I want to say about Vera, sometimes he really drops the ball and just like doesn't let his hands go and is like a walking punching bag, like against Sean O'Malley, and even moments against Sandhagen was just kind of pathetic. But what I've noticed is when Chito gets a shorter opponent, that's usually when he's more confident fighting that long range game, getting those kicks up the middle, the knees, the straight punches. Like, yeah, his hands might not be as clean as, say, you know, obviously they're not as fast and as clean as the guys that Deiveson just fought. You know, Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font both got serious hands, but Chito has a lot more durability than both those guys. He's a lot tougher than both these guys, and he's going to be there the whole time. So with Deiveson, it comes down to kind of like weasel tactics in the spot. And what I mean by that is that you limit the striking exchanges, because the thing about Deiveson is like Deiveson at flyweight, oh my God, one of the heaviest hitters. And he was even rocking Rob Font all over the place, but we kind of know Rob Font is on the tail end of his career. But the thing about it is Deiveson has slowed down tremendously on the feet, and he's eating a lot more clean shots. And he even got dropped in that Garbrandt fight. They didn't count it as a knockdown, but go back and rewatch it. It was definitely a knockdown. And even in the Font fight, I just felt like he looked a bit regressed. Now, granted, his ground game hasn't regressed at all. His jiu-jitsu is so nasty. So if he can, you know, kind of like Jose Aldo did to Chito in that third round, just kind of back take him and stall him out, I think, you know, Deiveson can definitely stall him out a little bit. And on the feet, even though Deiveson doesn't take the shots as well as he used to, he still cracks. So, but the thing about it is, like, Chito, are you going to let your hands go this time or not? Like, Chito, when he lets his hands go, I mean, he's a violence king. Like I said, most finishes in bantamweight history, but other times he'll stare at his opponents like a punching bag, or he'll get taken down and won't get back up. So it's like, I hate talking about, oh, which fighter's going to show up, because I really do feel like it discredits the opponent. But when you talk about Marlon Chito Vera, you have to bring that up, because sometimes he doesn't show up and just doesn't throw. So I don't want to be screaming Marlon throw, but like, again, when he gets this like 5'6", 5'5" opponent, that's when he usually does his best work. And, you know, most recently against Pedro Munoz, it comes out here with that game plan, I think he wins. But it's just, when you get into the business of betting on Chito Vera, as much as I love the guy, sometimes you're going to get an absolutely violent, chaotic result. Other times, he's not even going to let his hands go. So that is the definition of a hot and cold hit or miss fighter. But when he's on, he's on. And I think if he's on, he's going to beat Deiveson Figueiredo. But if he's not on, it's going to be very disappointing. I'm going to pick Chito Vera to win this fight. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Tony El Cucuy Ferguson, who's 25-10, taking on Michael Chiesa, who's 16-7. And I want to point out, this is at welterweight. I initially thought that Chiesa was dropping back to 55, which I thought was a terrible idea. But it's actually Tony moving up to 70s, where he won the Ultimate Fighter when he knocked out Ramsey Nijem. Currently, they got it. Currently, they got it. Michael Chiesa minus 750. Depends where you look. I see some minus 800s in some spots. The comeback on Tony El Cucuy is plus 475. Yeah, I mean, listen, Tony, when he was in his run, man, he was the boogeyman of the lightweight division. This is a guy that he actually came from a wrestling background, which you wouldn't expect because he gets taken down so easily. I think he fell in love with the 10th planet jiu-jitsu, but the guy's always marched to the beat of his own drum. Very unique style, very good use of the elbows. I'm talking about in his prime, not now. And Tony's truly a guy that rode until the wheels fell off, and he's still riding with the wheels off, And even in these fights, it's not like he's quitting. He just literally has nothing left to give. It's very sad because he still wants to be there. He's still tough. He even had Paddy Pimblett pulling guard in round 3. Now, granted, Paddy was so gassed from beating the ever-loving shit out of Tony Ferguson that, shit happens. But, I'm just saying, you saw that hyperextended armbar dude Bronx had him in. Look, dude, Tony is still tough as nails. And one thing about Chiesa, he's strong. And when he gets on top of you, he's physical, but he is not the toughest guy. Chiesa is a bully fighter. Chiesa can give it, but Chiesa cannot take it. And when you're talking about minus 750 Chiesa in this economy, it's like – I just, it's hard to get behind Tony when he's on a 7-fight skid. It reminds me of BJ Penn, who towards the end of his run, he starts losing to guys that he would have killed in his prime. You telling me BJ Penn wouldn't have smoked Clay Guida, Dennis Seaver, Ryan Hall, all these guys in his prime? Come on, dog. It's just that when you're at that point of no return, guys that you would have easily beat are not going to come out here and beat you. But the thing about it is, Chiesa's on his way out too. It ain't just Tony on his way out. Chiesa's on his way out. And funnily enough, they were supposed to run it in 2016, and Tony Ferguson was like a minus 300 favorite there. So it's funny, huge line adjustment now. Chiesa is like minus 750 in this spot. But I'm not gonna pick this fight. The reason being is I do think it's dog or pass, but the dog is a dead dog, and then the favorite minus 750 on Michael Chiesa. You hear that? You hear that, boys? What I mean? It's dog. I just refuse to pick Michael Chiesa at minus 750 on my own show, and I also refuse to pick the ghost and the corpse of Tony Ferguson to beat anybody with a pulse. So. Yeah, I mean, I see why Chiesa's favorite. Oh, get some takedowns. He won't get back up. Ha. That's probably going to be the case. But, you give Chiesa one hint of adversity, and he's looking for the door. And, yeah, so I have no idea. I refuse to give a pick on this one. You will not catch me dead saying the pick is minus 750 Michael Chiesa in a UFC fight. And you will also not catch me picking the they had take the shovels out and take Tony Ferguson out from 6 feet under to bring him back for this fight. It's just dude, yeah, the fight game. Because I don't know, y'all remember what Tony used to be like in his prime, man. He was brutal. Yeah, he got into some bad spots from time to time, but there was that montage of all the dudes he used to cut up with those elbows and really mess them up. And he was the boogeyman. So respect to T-Ferg, and I really hope he wins. But don't count on it. So yeah, I don't know. It's a pass for me. Next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Mackenzie Dern. She's 13-5, taking on Loopy Godinez, who's 12-4 currently. They got it. Mackenzie Dern minus 120. The comeback on Loopy Godinez is plus 100. Loopy's got all the talent, skills, this and that, but she just the fight IQ is so questionable, man. And there was a time there where we thought she was really starting to put it together and is about to go on this run, but she always resorts back to her jobber ways. How is the game plan against Vera Jandiroba to establish the grappling? Aren't you supposed to, sprawl and brawl, stuff her takedowns and make her stand with you? Isn't that not the path to least resistance against Vera Jandiroba, and you decide to initiate grappling with her? It's oh my God. So at what point do you just finally say fuck it on Loopy? Lost to Jessica Panay, to all these fights. I'm just man, bro, I've had enough of that. And then with Mackenzie, her last 2 fights didn't quite go her way, but I thought she showed a lot of toughness in that Lemos fight, even the Andrade fight, which was a fucking bludgeoning. But like in the Lemos fight, man, I felt like she showed a lot of toughness. She overcame a lot. She came back. Like one thing about Mackenzie, she got that dog in her. Like it might not look the prettiest when she fights. I'm not talking about her as a person. I'm talking about her fighting style. But she got that dog in her. She's a mean chick, man, and she's done well against real people. Like she had Yan Zhao in some very tough spots. She had Marina Rodriguez in some tough spots. The people that usually beat Mackenzie can neutralize the grappling. I mean, like look at Amanda Ribas, who's a real black belt, a real judo black belt as well. Look at look at Andrade and Lemos as well. Like even though Lemos does have some questions about her ground game, just the physicality was too much for for Dern there. So here it's just one of those things where I just think Dern's going to kind of gas pedal Loopy a little bit. She might get tagged at times, but I think she's going to be the tougher one here. So yeah, give me Mackenzie Dern to get this done. And next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Joel Alvarez. He's 20-3, taking on Elves Brenner, who's 16-4. Currently, they got it. So my boy Oscar scratching himself in the middle of my podcast. Y'all heard that? You good, boy. Currently, they got it. Joel Alvarez -190. The comeback on Elvis Brenner is +165. So Joel Alvarez, he's massive for the weight class. He's 6'3", misses weight a lot. I don't think he's ever stuffed a takedown. He's been taken down by all his UFC opponents, but he's nasty off his back. Triangles, arm bars. I mean, that's what you can expect when you're talking about a 6'3" guy. And then also on the feet, his Muay Thai is absolutely devastating. Look what he did to Thiago Moises. But the thing about it is, not only does he not stuff takedowns, but I got questions when people stand up to him. Like I feel like sometimes, like when he's the hammer, look out. But I got questions about him being the nail. And the thing about this dude, Elvis Brenner, he got that dog in him for real. And Elvis Brenner, he's coming to the UFC. He's been battle tested off the jump. Fought in Abu Dhabi, fought Tukugov, finished Guram Kutateladze, who a lot of people were saying was the next this, the next that, and had an incredible fight with Orobai. That was an amazing fight he had with Orobai, and it would have been a draw had Elvis not got dropped in the last couple seconds of the fight. So I think Joel has a good chance to knock out Elvis Brenner. Brenner's been hurt in a lot of fights, the Guram fight, the Orobai fight. But I think that also Elvis Brenner can absolutely get takedowns here. He took down Guram in the first minute of their fight, and Elvis has landed takedowns in every one of his UFC fights except the one against that kid that he face planted. So I think Elvis has all the tools to win here. I just need him to stay conscious because Joel is that dangerous. Joel is that potent, and Joel can knock people what out, man. So that's what we're worried about here with Brenner. But if Brenner stays conscious, man, I think that he can take this guy down. I think he can dog him a bit. So at these odds, I think it's dog or pass, and I'm actually going to go Elvis Brenner to get this upset. Now, next up in the 205-pound division, we got a matchup between Alonzo Menifield. He's 15-4, taking on Azamat Murzakanov, who's 13-0. Currently, they got it. Azamat -190. The comeback on Alonzo is +165. So I've enjoyed this guy, Azamat. Like people talk about he's older, he's this and that, but dude, he's landed a knockdown in every single one of his UFC fights and contenders fights. And the guy's clearly dangerous. The guy's clearly got a presence about him. He's got about his striking, but he actually has a Sambo background from back in the day. And Alonzo Menifield, it seemed like he was putting things together that last fight, against Oldberg. He just runs at him. He went full Cody Garbrandt. Never go full Cody Garbrandt. But prior to that, man, I like the run he was on. But at the same time, we got to put so much context in these wins. I don't want to be the guy to discredit the wins, but it's like Askar Mozharov, the guy that frauded his record. He was 17-13 at the time. And then like apparently like they changed his record after that. Misha Serkunov, retired fighter. Jimmy the Brute Crute. I love me some Jimmy the Brute Crute, but everybody knows Jimmy Crute hasn't been the same since the Jamal fight. And then Dustin Jacoby, great kickboxer in Dustin Jacoby, but Dustin was winning that fight and just had a little lapse of concentration, got caught at the very end. So yeah, it's like I'm not trying to discredit Alonzo's current run, but I still think there's a lot of red flags, and we're still dealing with a guy that lost to William Knight and Devin Clark. And I just think Azamat right now, that he's performing on a level where even though he's not fighting as often, and not that Russians tend to do, but it's the way he's performing. And I just think this is a good matchup for him. I think he's cleaner than Alonzo Menifield. I think he makes smarter decisions in there, but obviously Alonzo's still a big dude, big jack dude that can change the tide of the fight with one moment. So you have to be worried about that. But guess who else can change the tide of the fight with one moment? Azamat. And I think Azamat just has a little bit more finesse, a little bit more, his game's a little more polished. And I think he's going to beat Alonzo Menifield. So yeah, give me Azamat Murzakanov there. Now, next up in the 55-pound division, the lightweight division, we got a match between Mohammad Yahya. He's 12-4, taking on Kaue Fernandes, who's 8-2 currently. They got it. Kaue minus 400. The comeback of Mohammad Yahya is plus 300. So Mohammed's like the only like Abu Dhabi like fighter like representing the UAE. So that's cool. Shout out to you, man. The issue I have with this matchup is I don't think either guy is that special. I think they're both actually pretty low level, but I think they do similar things. They like to play on their backs. They're jiu-jitsu guys, but I just think that Kaue Fernandes has fought better competition, is just a better version of Mohammad Yahya, a little bit more physical, comes from a better camp, a little bit more experience, and that should be the difference here. But laying minus 400 on an unproven guy is just not my style. So it's a pass for me. I'm a lean Kaue because I see them as similar fighters, and Kaue just being more physical, but would it surprise you if he lost? This guy ain't proven shit. So, no, it would not surprise me at all. Now, next up in the 200, next up in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Shamil Gaziev, or as we like to say, Gaziev. He's 12-1, taking on Dontale Mayes, who's 11-6. Currently, they got it. Shamil minus 205. The comeback on Dontale Mayes was plus 175. Yeah. I've never been high on Dontale Mayes. He had that amazing moment where he humped Buddy's face on live TV. But you got to remember, this is the same guy that Snoop Dogg said wasn't invited to the gang fight. And you saw why. The guy lost to Alan Crowder. He's just very inconsistent. He's a big physical dude. He's like 6'6" and jacked and stuff. Well, not that jacked, but he's like 6'6", 6'7", like just a big dude, So you got to be worried about it. But like, I think Shamil should be able to pin him up against the fence, dirty box a little bit, and have similar results that he did against Boudet. Like these are the kind of opponents that Shamil Gaziev should beat. I mean, like, don't hold it against him. They lost to Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik's like a top 5, top 10 guy. So now you're back to fighting some unranked guy that is always dropping the ball left, right, and center. So, as long as you don't pull death gas or do something crazy, which don't leave it, don't count out that possibility. I just think that Shamil is just better than Dontale Mayes. So I'm going to pick him for that reason. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Guram Kutateladze, he's 12-4, taking on Jordan Vucenic, who's 13-2. Currently, they got it. Guram Kutateladze minus 205. The comeback on Jordan Vucenic is plus 175. This fight's also interesting because it's like I'm still trying to figure out who each guy truly is. Like Guram comes into the UFC and people, back then when Khamzat had all the hype he had, if you were a training partner of Khamzat, oh my God, this guy must be the future too. And listen, Guram comes out there for a guy that lost to Oliver Enkamp on his regionals, goes into the UFC, beats Gamrot, controversial or not, apologizing at the end of the fight to Gamrot or not, which is funny because if you pull up one of Gamrot's fights against Norman Park, even Norman Park was apologizing to Gamrot. Gamrot's like a powerful dude. I don't mean with his hands. I mean like in terms of like status. Like dude's like Yeah, don't get on the wrong side of Gamrot. That's what I'm trying to say. But Guram, he got his arm raised, and he had the fight with Damir Ismagulov, and this was closer to a more prime Damir than it was the guy who had all the health issues. And it was a good competitive fight. And then the Elves Brenner fight, that was a back and forth fight where both guys had huge moments. And then at the very end, Elves kind of folded him up a little bit. But, these are seasoned guys he's going up against. And with Vucenic, I really admire the fact that look at who this guy has beat coming into the UFC. He's fought Paul Hughes twice. He beat him the first time. He beat Morgan Charrier, who's in the UFC right now, and they went 5 rounds. So there's a lot to like about Vucenic. He's coming into the UFC with his dues paid. He's coming into the UFC with experience. He's coming into the UFC with experience, and he's got a point to prove, but he's also a featherweight, and there's certain things about his game I'm trying to figure out. So, like, I'd say I'd categorize him more as like a scrambler almost. He's got a nasty jiu-jitsu game, but in doing that and going so, being so committed to those scrambles and this and that, he will give up positions as a result. Now he's super tough to finish, but like I'm saying, when you scramble as much as this guy does, you're going to give up positions. But on the feet, he's got some like sneaky straight down the middle punches. He's got this little like 12-6 elbow, or like almost like a Braves tomahawk chop that he likes to do to close the distance. And then with Guram, is Guram one of these guys that's just like amazing in the gym, great training partner, but is just plagued by injuries, so he can't perform in the UFC? Or has he taken the proper amount of time off to where now he can come back out there and go on that run that people thought he was initially going to go on? I mean, there's a lot of questions about this fight, and Vucenic definitely deserves to be here, but he is a featherweight. There are weight classes for a reason. Can he come out here and outdog Guram Kutateladze? That's the big question. I think that Guram's just slightly a bit more physical. And despite the fact that Vucenic has fought admirable competition, like I said, he went 5 rounds with Morgan Charrier, who's in the UFC. He won. He beat Paul Hughes the first time, lost to him the second time. That's like a really good prospect. So he's battle tested for sure. But again, there's weight classes for a reason, and I want to see. This is my last chance for Guram. Let's see. Are you Guram or are you Bumram? That's what I want to know. And this fight's going to let me know that. I'm going to pick Guram here. I think the UFC experience and the size as well can make a difference, but I'm not counting out Vucenic because, again, this is not one of those 5-0 guys making his debut, and it's clearly not ready. Like this guy's ready. So let's see. I'm gonna go Guram here, but not confidently. Then next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Victoria Dudakova. She's 8-0, taking on Sam Hughes, who's 8-6. Currently, they got it. Dudakova -155. The comeback on Hughes is +135. Dudakova is very talented, but she's very green. She's got a long way to go. She's got a lot to learn about the game. But there's a lot of things I like about her. I think that she's tough. I think that she's mean. And she's got some skills too, man. So I like me some Dudakova, but I'd like to also see her pay her dues a bit. And then with Sam Hughes, talk about paying your dues. Sam Hughes comes into the UFC, and she goes 0-3 off the bat, right? And then after that, goes on a nice little 2-fight win streak, wins 3 of her next 4. And like, if you're not quite ready for the UFC level, Sam Reeves is going to expose that. My issue that I've always had with Sam, I said Sam Reeves. I meant Sam Hughes. The issue I've had with Sam Hughes throughout her career is that sometimes she's not assertive enough. Sometimes she's content to you go, I go, and 50-50 fights. But hey, it's a 50-50 fight, +135 dog odds. I mean, because I really truly believe Dudakova, as much as I'm a fan, as much as I'm not a fan of the fact that this chick's out here getting like staph infection on her ass. Like, can you please take a shower after you train? But like, I'm a fan of, like, I see the potential, I see the talent. It's just, a lot of that comes with stumbling blocks with the roadblocks along the way. Like, you got to take L's here and there. So I would not be surprised if Sam Hughes came out here and handed her first L. Let me look at some stats. Let's see what the stats say in terms of how they match up. So Dudakova has a 3-inch reach advantage. Dudakova is 7 years younger. Sam Hughes fights at a higher pace. But where I think Dudakova might have an edge is Dudakova loves to shoot for takedowns, and Sam Hughes does not have the best takedown defense. So Victoria might be able to seal off rounds with those takedowns. Okay, so I think I'm going to lean towards Dudakova to kind of win a close decision here. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Jai Herbert. He's 12-5, taking on Rolando Bedoya, who's 14-3 currently. They got it. So there's been some line movement, right? But I think right now the best line they're hanging up, they got for Jai a minus 130, I see, but for Bedoya, FanDuel still has a plus 126. It's interesting. I see Jai Herbert. Firstly, let me see what the age difference is here, because I know it's probably something. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So Bedoya, interestingly enough, is 9 years younger than Jai Herbert. And Jai just kind of reminds me of like and I mean this respectfully. It's not a respectful thing to say, but I mean this the nicest way I can say it. I just view Jai Herbert as like a poor man's Leon Edwards, He's 6'1". He's not a southpaw like Leon. He's got the 77-inch reach. He's a low output kickboxer. Kind of got that sniper game going, but the strike counts are his numbers are so low. You remember that Connor line when he was talking about other people's pay-per-view buys? He's like, his numbers are so low. Like with Jai Herbert, his numbers are so low, man. The most output he's ever landed in a single fight was his last fight against Zion, which he lost. 49 significant strikes. He's never passed that his entire career. In the 2 fights that Rolando's had in the UFC, 149 significant strikes against Chaos, which I'm telling you right now, if you are a jobber and you fight Chaos Williams and you let Chaos Williams hit you 130 times, you're going to get knocked the you-know-what out. And then the Keenan Song fight, I know that at welterweight, Keenan Song might be like a mid-tier guy, but Keenan Song's still a legitimate, this is not a guy that's going to drop to 55s. This is a full-grown welterweight, and this is a guy that dropped Ian Gary, man. You know what I'm saying? So, like, what I'm trying to say here is that Rolando, like, he already had like a dad bod at like 70s, and we were thinking, like if you go back and watch my breakdown in this fight with Chaos Williams, I said, like, I like this kid a lot, but he's got to drop a weight class. And then he overperformed in that fight, and then I bet him against Song in his next fight, and he outvolumed him. He like doubled him up on strikes, but like Song had a couple big moments with like a knockdown. That's what we know. We know Song. Keenan Song is a very, very heavy and opportunistic hitter. But in this spot, Jai Herbert is just kind of like, if Rolando wants to play at an outside low output kickboxing game with Jai Herbert, I could see him get picked apart. But Rolando, keeps it up with the over 100 significant strikes like he has the last 2 fights. Now you're at 55s. You're probably in better shape, so you can push a higher pace. He needs to kind of do what Bilal did to Leon, minus the takedown attempts. Like, I'm talking about in terms of the distance. Just close the distance right away. Get this guy backing up, and don't even like give him the space to get off on, his straight punches, his high kick, the one that he hurt Topuria with, and this and that. But I'm just thinking, like, if Bedoya, and again, MMA math, whatever, but like if you could bang with Chaos Williams for 15 straight minutes, like when you're a lightweight, I mean, that speaks volumes, man. Like Chaos knocks dudes the you-know-what out if they do not belong in there with him. And now that you're dropping to your right weight class, you finally have abs, no more dad bod. Like, I think it's a good spot for Bedoya to get back on track, and he needs it. Backs up against the wall. So you got the poor man's Leon versus a shoot the box brawler. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna go with shoot the box. Hey. Now, last but not least, we got a matchup in the middleweight division between Cedriquez Dumas. He's 9-2, taking on Dennis Chaluan, who's 11-9 currently. They got it. Cedriquez Dumas minus 235. The comeback on Dennis Chaluan is plus 200. Dennis Chaluan's interesting because he does have hands, but he's not the most athletic. He's a bit on the slower side, and for a Russian, his grappling is very subpar. And then once with Cedric Dumas, he's super, super green. One of my best bets of 2 years ago was Fremd, like plus 190 against Dumas. And people talk about how Dumas didn't really lose his last fight to Nursultan Ruzaboyev. It was an eye poke. He didn't really lose. Yeah, but his reaction to the eye poke was so low fight IQ. Like when you get fouled like that, you need to kind of like keep your distance. Like, hey, like I got poked. I need a second. Like run away. Like get your distance. But this guy just goes to the ground, covers up, lets the ref intervene. Like, what do you think? Of course you're gonna get called for a TKO loss there. So the IQ he showed when he got fouled was very, very bad. But what he does got going for him is that he's a young guy. You know, Dumas still in his 20s. He's 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. And, you know, he can strike a little bit. I've seen some of his knockouts, but like where it's really been at for him is that he's actually been able to come out here and actually mix in like a wrestling attack. And that's always worked against Denis Chaluin. But when you talk about who's the tougher guy, it's 100% Denis Chaluin here. Like Denis Chaluin goes out on the shield on the reg, man. Denis Chaluin is not scared of anybody. Let me just tell you that right now. And if he's not just getting grinded out or choked out or something by Cedric Dumas, Denis Chaluin can walk this dude down and systematically break him. So that's what I'm worried about. But I do kind of lean towards Dumas grinding it. But this is a dog. You do not. Friends don't let friends lay -2 something on Cedric Dumas in a UFC fight. If you didn't learn after the Frem fight, I don't know what to tell you. But I'll still pick him to edge it out. But I think it looks like I don't know about -EV, but I could see it being kind of boring actually if he's just kind of like laying on him like in that Brundage fight. But that being said, the weakness on the mat for Chaluin, even though he's worked on it a little bit, it's just not up to par, and that's going to cost him long term. And now a dude who likes to bang, his durability is waning too. So yeah, it sucks. You know what happens to these guys that go blood and guts, but that's the fight game. I'm going to lean towards Dumas, but I don't blame people for taking the underdog shot on Chaluin. It's just I think that he's damaged goods, so I'm good on that. Now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Abu Dhabi? My friends, I think the fight to watch is Joel Alvarez versus Elves Brenner. I mean, this is not guaranteed violence. Are these two not going to stand and bang until one man falls? And if not, is there not going to be blood? There's not going to be guts. Like, I just think when you get two dogs like that in there, you know, they got the leashes on them. They're staring at each other on Friday. And then once you let the leashes go and these two get in there will be blood. So for that reason, Joel Alvarez versus Elves Brenner is my fight to watch. Who's the fighter to watch? My friends, I think that the fighter to watch for this card is Marlon Chito Vera. Listen, you're coming off a title loss to Sean O'Malley where it was so bad that like you actually have a win over Sean. Like, and the rematch looked so bad that no one wants to see a trilogy. And now people are saying that, you know, once you climb the mountain, there's nowhere to go but down. But he has an opportunity here against a legend of the sport, against a former multiple-time world champion. And if he can get a win here against a guy like Deiveson, especially in an emphatic one, when Chito, I'm not talking about Chito that's gun shy. I'm talking about Chito that lets the violence go, the Chito with the most finishes in bantamweight history. If that guy shows up, like all of a sudden, we praise him for his durability in the O'Malley fight, let him get a couple more wins, and you never know what could happen next for him. So this is a crossroads fight, in my opinion, for both guys, but especially for Chito because of coming off the title loss. But he's still at an age where he can climb back up, whereas Deiveson, it's now or never. So yeah, man, Chito Vera is my fighter to watch. My friends, we did it. Thank you so much for all your support. Shout out Bilal, remember the name Mohammad, cashing that plus 225, and more importantly than the bets, just going out there and showing that you don't need to be a Francis Ngannou one-punch knockout artist. You don't need to be, you know, have a vertical jump like, I don't know, Izzy or GSP. You don't need to, you know, you don't need to be this ridiculous athlete to go out there and do something special. Just hard work, dedication, and this guy put his head down to the grindstone. He was denied time after time after time, and it was finally his time to go out there and try to accomplish his dream. Boy, did he do that. So shout out Bilal. That was really beautiful to see. And again, thanks to all the supporters. Shout out to my artist, Meticulous. Been absolutely killing it. You'll see all the rebranding that's about to go on. I'm so stoked to be working with you, man. Like I told you, like I had other artists send me some good stuff. Like send me some legit good stuff. But like when I saw your stuff, I was like, yeah, this is the direction I want to go in. And then I got these guys calling me pieces of shit. Like, bro, I got to do what's best for the show, man. And it's just business, So thank you, Meticulous. Thank you to the fans, everybody. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment. If you feel so inclined to share, I truly appreciate that. And I'm grateful to be here every week with you guys talking fights. So thank you. Until the next time, let's cash these bets.